All right, what's up, guys? I'm JS Garrett, and I'm here with my good friend Vinny, and we're going to get into some cool radionic experiments that Vinny's been working on for quite a while, as well as some new toys that he sent me. So, how you doing, brother?
Good, JS. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I appreciate you making time to jump on and chat with me here. You know, you and I have been talking for a couple of years now about different
Right.
experiments and different things that we're working on together. And you've really made some badass breakthroughs, and you've helped me make some as well. So I wanted to get on here and pick your brain and chat with you about some of the new projects you're working on and all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Cool. So you've been getting into radionics pretty heavy, and of course I've been doing the same thing. You know, I kind of figured out a while back after reading Uncle Chucky's books that there really was no difference between radionics and magic. You know, it's just like two different techniques or methods that achieve the same ends. You know, so we've been trying to merge those two together with things like evocation and spell casting and stuff like that to really amplify the power of both of them. So something cool that you sent me was this little wire with these little alligator clamps on it. And this plugs into a radionics box. And this is really cool. So, I mean, there's something that we were talking about off camera here is, you know, like say I've got this incense burner. And let's say I wanted to spill some blood or something like that in here and then hook it up to my radionics machine to feed it to a demon or something. You know, you can just hook these alligator clips onto the metal incense burner, and you have a whole nother radionics plate right here to add things to. So, I mean, is that tell us what made you come up with that, dude?
Well, I came up with that. I made this copper sigil out of well, it was basically a piece of copper plate. I made it of Santala. I sent you one, and then I kept one myself. So they're basically sisters. And every so often I prick my finger just like you show in your videos and drop the blood onto Santalic as the Santalic sigil, copper sigil as an offering. And I've noticed that it kind of like has a pretty good effect to it. And what I liked about it was that I was like, oh, this is neat. It's made out of copper and all that. And then when I started seeing your some of your inventions with the side plates that plug into the radionics box, I was like, well, I've got this copper sigil of Santalic, and I just figured, well, I can plug that in to the machine and then offer the blood on there and see if that actually amplifies the effect that I'm looking for, and business has been pretty good lately. So I have to say that I'm thinking that's a big part of it. And the funny thing that I've realized when I'm doing that is that the blood dries in a certain way and normally on the plate, but then when now that I have it hooked up to the radionics box with the alligator clips, you know, offering the same amount of blood on there, the blood dries differently. So there is actual physical energy going from the radionics box, pumping through those wires, put onto those alligator plates. I mean, those alligator pins onto the copper plate. And I sent you a couple of just some small little coins that I stamped out.
Yeah, I've got them right here, little copper coins that you sent me.
Oh yeah. And so my theory behind that is if you don't have the piece with a sigil drawn on it, that one you can just use as a blank plate, and you can drop whatever you want to drop on there, whether it's your own blood, if you want to do a baneful action, if you want to drop some baneful elixir on there or some goofer dust on there, pipe it in to your into the radionics box and over to your target. You could do it for either baneful or positive.
What you do is you'd plug this into the input plate and then hook
Correct.
the alligator clamps onto a couple of these copper coins here. Oh, my hands are kind of sweaty. There we go. And so if this is plugged into the input plate and you got that sitting there, then you have actually, now you have 3 input plates. So
Yep.
it's all feeding into the output. So what you're saying, I could put some doom oil on this one and some goofer dust on this one, and then put my sigil of a baneful spirit on the actual input plate. And then I'm feeding all 3 of these into the single output plate. So it's
Correct.
it's a way to add to your machine. And it's something that, you know, anybody can pick this up for a couple of bucks and put it together at the hardware store. You know, so
it's not expensive. The tricky part is the plug. You got to get the right plug, because I found out when I was like looking for that actual plug right there. Yeah. You've got to have the right one that gets into the adapter, and I took, there's so many of them, so I took the one that I got with the wish box with the extra plate on it, and I took it down to the I couldn't even find it at the hardware store. I found it at a specialty shop, but they were able to find it. I said, "Yep, that's the one that you want." So I pulled it all apart and figured, "Oh, I gotta solder these things on there with the soldering iron, and then put them together." And then I figured, okay, we've got the 2 alligator clips here, and then go to town.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
It's not crazy, but it's not. I mean, it's not crazy hard, but it's very doable.
Well, I mean, that's what I love about the Radionics system, is that they're very forgiving and they're very versatile, and you can once you figure out how they work or how to take them apart or modify them or add to them, like it gets really fun to experiment with these things. And you know, I'll find that, you know, it's like, as long as you get the dials set correctly, the box does exactly what you want it to do. Like 9 times out of 10, you can predict the outcome of what happens. And so, it's a lot of fun to play with.
That was the hardest part for me, was actually doing that stick plate. I was going, okay, well, I got to rub this thing, and then I, turn the dial and until it actually stuck. And I was like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And then finally I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel this. I feel the stick. And then when it took me a little while, but when you said it's just like dowsing, I've got dowsing rods that I play around with. And I was like, oh, okay, it's just like the dowsing rods. And when you get the right answer, they actually literally cross over.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool that it does that. And I showed that to various people, and they're like, I can't believe that you do that. Well, it's not that hard. Anybody can do it. And as soon as I give them the rods and have them start dowsing on their own, they're like, oh yeah, this works.
Yeah. Speaking of dowsing rods, my daughter has taken an interest in dowsing recently. And so I gave her my dowsing rods, and I showed her how to use them, and how to talk to her spirit guides with them and things like that. And after she practiced for a couple of days, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to show you how to get good at it here. So I took 5 envelopes, folded a dollar bill up, and put it inside one, shuffled them up when she wasn't looking, and laid them all out in a line on the floor. And I was like, okay, now you simply ask, where is the dollar? And then you walk across the envelopes, and they'll cross when you are over top of the dollar. She's like, okay, she didn't overthink it or anything. She found the dollar every time out of 5 envelopes. Like, she'd found it on the first try. So I shuffle them back up and put them out in a different order. And I could not stump her, dude. Like, she could find it every time. She's probably better at it than I am as a kid.
Usually kids are, if you don't give them any expectations and you just say, hey, look, this is what I want you to do, and then do it just like you did, they will amaze you.
Yeah. Well, it's like, part of me, whenever I find like a new magical technique or a new magic spell, like the scientist in me wants to break it down and analyze it and figure out exactly how it works. Why does it work? How does it work? And then once you understand the mechanics, then you can start adding to it or taking that, system or technique and creating other spells out of it. But I almost think that magic can be more effective if you don't understand how it works and you don't question it. Like, so, I mean, if I give you a simple spell, like, do this, and say this at this specific time, and a miracle happens. And you're like, okay, you kind of go into it with no expectations. You just follow the instructions and say what you're supposed to say, and boom, you're like, holy shit, it's magic, And
I had that holy shit moment not too long ago. I told you about it. It was with my sister. She was diagnosed with a 4 millimeter mass on her kidneys, and which is actually pretty sizable. And so she went in she had her appointment to get set up to go into to get it operated on, and to figure out what it actually was at the time, and say, okay, well, this is the course of action that they were going to have to actually use. And I just used your techniques off of summoning Raphael, and I asked her, I said, hey, do you want me to try this? And she said, yeah, let's try it. So she drew the sigil of Raphael on her kidney, on the affected area. I went out and purchased a little statue. It was about a foot tall of Raphael. And then I called him in, I lit candles, called him in, offered him some just exactly like what you said. I didn't overthink it. I had never done that before. I had never called Raphael before, but just following your basic instructions, called out to him, did a basic rite. What I did was I was very, it was very heartfelt, come from the heart, speaking everything, all the incantations. Shoot, the next day she went in for her operation, and the surgeon went in there, literally cut her open, went into arthroscopically to look for the mass. The mass was gone. He's like, I don't know why you're here. You don't have anything here. And
totally
sent her home. Totally disappeared.
And that's overnight. You did it the night before surgery?
I did it the night before surgery.
Yeah. And there are x-rays and all this other shit to prove that there was a mass there.
Yep. It was a 4 millimeter mass.
So I mean, that's a genuine miracle. Like
I believe
like
so.
That
Yeah.
Disappear overnight. That's a genuine miracle.
Right.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah. So it's when you don't like you said, when you don't overthink it, and you go at it genuinely from your heart, you can make miracles happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard this saying multiple times. I don't know who the person was who actually coined it, but is when your thoughts marry your emotions, then that's when you make miracles happen.
Yeah.
So it's that's really fucking cool, dude. And once you do something like that, you're hooked. You're like, oh man.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, man, I can do anything now. It's like no matter what life throws at you, you feel like you have something in your toolbox to combat that with, and that's the power that magic gives people when they actually pick up the sword and wield it.
Yeah, and I was so beside myself, I should say, when that happened, that I the following day when she told me, I was like, okay, now I got to go do another ritual to thank Raphael for intervening the way he did. That because I felt like I didn't do it. I was just kind of a facilitator to have him go and do his intervention and go do whatever he needed to do.
That's awesome. Nicely done, man. It's fucking
awesome. Thanks.
I love hearing stuff like that. The other thing I wanted to get into with you is a new project, a new experiment you're working on with Radionics and incorporating an actual visual machine. So can you kind of tell us as much as you're comfortable with what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that one's kind of my baby right now. I came up with it a little over a year ago. I went in for a hernia operation, and I was like, oh man, I gotta get through this. And they gave me pain pills, and I was like, oh, well, I don't really want to take the pain pills because I'm like not the type of person that is like, oh no, yeah, just like give me the drugs and let me just like veg out. I got to get better and get back to work. So I was laying there one day in pain, and it was kind of a I called out to Astarte and to say, hey, give me a vision on how to, on what you actually look like. What do you actually look like? And it was almost like a download. I wrote it down, kind of like mapped it out, and came up with the idea of how to actually come up with a physical manifestation of an entity. That being said, it's involved. It's what I'm trying to do is get the actual sigil of a deity. So let's say for this instance, it's Astarte, the star with the lines, circles on it. What I want to do is convert that into a computer file, and then from the computer file, pump it into the radionics box. Then from the radionics box, I'm coming up with another piece of equipment that kind of like the alligator clips that I sent you, but that's going to go into a generator, and then that generator actually pumps out the actual image, or the essence of the image back into the computer, and then the computer generates an image.
Yeah.
And then that image is actually converted to a file, and it can be projected into a hologram. So cool. the theory is, you start with a sigil, you go through all these processes with the radionics box is right in the middle of it, and at the end you get the actual image of the deity that you're wanting to summon.
So it's like taking the sigil and converting it into a music file, running it through a radionics box, through a holographic projector, and getting the actual image of the spirit.
Basically, that's what it is. Yeah. And then I've actually I started, once I got that basic concept down, I started researching it. Cymatics is the science behind it. And so I went and got a cymatics machine, and I'm going to start playing. That just arrived, so I'm going to start playing with that too, and seeing what we can come up with. And it could be that the sigil is actually the signature, and then the cymatics is the frequency that generates the image. And then once we generate the image, we can convert that to a computer file, and then the computer file is generated through the hologram, and we get the actual image of the entity.
So that's awesome, because I'm always telling people, they're like, well, I summoned the spirit and the spell worked, but I didn't see them. And I'm like,
yeah.
Well, the spirit's not going to poof and appear like Darth Vader on a hologram. And so, I mean, what you're talking about is actually making the spirit appear like Darth Vader on the fucking hologram.
That's where I got the idea, because I've been doing these ceremonies, and I'm like, well, I'm not seeing a physical manifestation of this entity. And then that's when I started talking to Astarte, and I was like, how do I actually see you? And then so that's the theory behind it. It's still theory right now. I'm working on it, and hopefully soon that it'll come to fruition in actuality, and then we can put it on jsgarrett.com.
Hey, I'm totally down for that, and I can't wait. Well, I have no doubt that once you build this machine, it's going to do something phenomenal. Like there's really no way that it could not have a profound effect. Now, I mean, as far as what the image will look like, I have no idea. This is all experimental stuff. But sure. I definitely think you're onto a badass idea here, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some secret underground government testing facility doing something similar to this right now. That's too cool.
It could be. Who knows?
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to leave us with before we wrap this up?
Well, let's see. I just am an extreme admirer of yours and Barbie's, and I think that you guys are doing such a great job in the field that you guys are trailblazers, and we're just, wanting to follow in your footsteps. And not everybody's the same, and you just got to follow your own path. And but you can take bits and pieces from people like yourself, and that's kind of what I've done. And I've been very fortunate on the stuff that I've done with you and learned from you, and I just really appreciate it.
Well, dude, that's too kind of you to say. I appreciate you as well, and dude, you're a trailblazer yourself, my friend. Like you're like what we were just talking about. Like you're working on shit that nobody's even thought of yet, man. So you're taking these techniques that are working for you, and then you are building something like a whole completely different beast here. So yeah, I learned from you too, brother, and I appreciate everything. And yeah, we'll have to get on and do this again in the future. I can't wait to.
Okay.
You got to keep me posted on this project. Whenever you're ready to
Oh, yeah.
roll it out, man, I'll be honored to have you on to show it off.
Not a problem. I still want to pick your brain on a few items. So
Well, sure,
it's
yeah, we can definitely do that. But I'll go ahead and wrap up the recording. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and stay tuned because we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep dropping awesome content. Hail the Infernal Empire.